Hey, welcome to Phoenix Kitchen. Today we're getting ready for the holidays by making those traditional favorites, summer sausage. Let's see how we do it. All right, we're going to be making summer sausage, and I'll tell you, this is my first time, so I wanted to experiment and try a lot of different things. But the summer sausage recipe will remain the same. It's just different types of meat and different size sausages. So the first thing that we're going to do is get those ingredients measured out for the seasonings. There are certain things that happen within a summer sausage that create that specific flavor that you get. And that flavor we're looking for is the tang. Now, we are not going to use the fermentation method. We're going to use a quick set method using encapsulated citric acid, and we'll see how that works. So just to give you a rundown, obviously the recipe is in the description down below, so you can look it up exactly. What we're measuring for here is our first 4-pound batch. It's going to be a beef and pork summer sausage. 2 pounds of beef, a pound of pork, and a pound of beef fat. We do want our summer sausage to be a little fattier than a lot of the sausages that we make, so we're going to run about a 70-30 blend. Now we're going to use the usual suspects: kosher salt, curing salt, some garlic, mustard seed, black pepper, coriander, allspice, nutmeg. We'll use water because we need the moisture, and then we're going to use two things that we don't normally do. We got carrot binder for our binder instead of the milk powder. It's just made from carrot fiber that's been ground down, and it works incredibly, and it takes just honestly a pinch compared to what we usually have to use the milk powder for. You'll see when you look in the recipe, we're only going to use 7 grams. It's not something that I pick up in a local supermarket. I did have to order it. There's a company online called Sausage Maker, conveniently enough. And they have all the supplies that you could ever need for making different types of sausages. Also from them, I ordered Encapsulated Citric Acid. These are actual citric acid granules that are encapsulated individually in fat. We're not going to add it to our regular spice mix. It's going to be the very last thing we add to the sausage. And we do that because we don't want that fat to become emulsified and release the citric acid too soon. We want it to release slowly during the cook and smoking process so that it's blended into the meat. It comes out at the appropriate time and gives us that little tang that we normally would get from long aging and fermentation process with summer sausage. So let's go ahead and finish getting these all measured out, and then we'll get to working on the meat. All right, so for this sausage, beef and pork, I'm grinding the meat from some meat that I already had. These are pork trimmings from where we ordered a hog. Rather than having them grind it, I asked them to just give us the pieces they would normally grind in vacuum bags, and they went ahead and did that for us. When you grind meat and then you store it, that muscle fiber tends to seize up. It's not as tender. You tend to lose a little flavor. Grinding it fresh is so amazing. Tastes so much better. Although you will see as we make some other sausages toward the end of the video, we're trying out some things like venison and bison. And in order to do that, I had to purchase that already ground because that's all that was available at some of my supermarkets. So we're going to get this measured out in the appropriate amounts for the beef, the pork, and the beef fat. Then we're going to cube it to make it fit into our grinder, and we'll go ahead and get everything ground up and be ready to add our spices. All right, so we removed the grinding attachment and we're gonna put on our paddle onto our stand mixer, and we're just gonna go ahead and mix these spices in with the paddle rather than by hand. We're gonna ensure a good mixture all the way through. One thing that I would highly recommend, like I mentioned, this is my first time doing this and it's a lesson learned. I have a 6.5 quart KitchenAid stand mixer. 4 pounds of meat really test the limits of being able to blend the spices in using this thing. You'll see a few times where I have to take my hand and push it back down, push the meat back down in. It just wants to come rolling over the sides. Later, I made 3-pound batches, worked perfectly. So you really want to check the size of your mixer before you go in with a full amount of meat. Make sure you know what will fit. Now we're going to be using cellulose casings for these. I'm still going to soak them in water, but honestly, that's just to get them to loosen up a little bit. It's not like when we're using our natural pork casings where they're encrusted with salt and we have to rinse that salt out. This is really just to soften them up. I get the mahogany simply because, man, that's the color I grew up with as a kid. Going to the mall, that Hickory Farm store when it would open up for the holiday season, that's the color. You can buy these clear and they work perfectly. They're cool, but for me, I really wanted that mahogany. When I was researching recipes for summer sausages and how to make them, everything recommended these 3-inch casings that you just saw there. And that's what I used. Let me tell you, this thing will hold 4 pounds of meat. This is one hell of a summer sausage. The later ones that you'll see us make, we did go down to 1.5 inches and started trimming, making different size sausages so we could get something that is a little more user-friendly versus having, to open up 4 pounds of meat at a time. All right, so we're gonna start by adding in our spices and let this thing mix for a few minutes. We are adding everything except for the encapsulated citric acid. Very important, that does not go in until the very end, about the last 2 to 3 minutes of mixing, just long enough to get it mixed well in there. So we go ahead and get our spices in. After the spices begin to incorporate, we're going to add the water. That water is going to help everything to mix and emulsify and become the texture we're looking for. It's going to help the mixer to blend everything a little more easily. So once we've got the spices really kind of working in, we're just going to go in and slowly add that water. And we'll come up with a nice mix. And then we'll keep an eye on everything and make sure that we don't come flying out of our mixing bowl because we really stuffed this thing a little too full. We'll bring it off the paddle a couple of times and then go back in just to ensure that we're getting a really good mix. We're going to let it run for probably 5 to 6 minutes, and then we'll add the encapsulated citric acid. Now, of course, the recipe calls for a specific amount of water, but as it's mixing and you watch it, if it's not looking moist and becoming emulsified, you can add a little bit more. Just go easy. Remember, it's always easier to add water than it is to take away. Just to make sure everything is working nice and smoothly, you can drizzle in a little more if you need it. All right, and then the last step, we're going to add that encapsulated citric acid to the mix. Let it mix for 3 to 4 minutes to get really incorporated, and then we'll just move the meat into our stuffer. All right, so now it's time to get this thing cased up. We've got all 4 pounds in this meat stuffer. What I'm working with here are the little hog clips that help to close off your end once you've got everything finished. And what I find later is they're a real pain in the butt. And I ended up using twine just to go ahead and tie it, because once your hands are kind of wet and greasy with everything that's going on here, trying to use the little pliers and put that on and keep everything firm, it's really difficult. I found it easier just to use the twine. Now, obviously, these casings just slide on so much more easily than the natural hog casings. We're just going to go ahead and get this all the way up to the end. We really don't want any air going into this, so we're going to get it as tight as we can and start cranking it in. The other nice thing about these cellulose casings versus the natural hog casings, you're not going to explode these. Now, if you have an electric powered with the pedal pump, I guess it's possible that thing could actually overfill it. But if you're standing here hand cranking, it doesn't matter how fat you make this thing. Just go ahead and stuff it until it's as tight as it can go. It will hold. And then we're just going to keep going nice and slow and get this thing filled all the way up. We want to go slowly. We don't want air pockets in there. We want to make sure we're really getting everything filled up with all of this meat coming out. We're going to bring it out just one nice straight summer sausage, and then we're going to close off the end. And like I told you, you'll see me struggle with these hog clips just a little bit, and then say, forget that. Grab a piece of twine, get it all tied off and ready to go. All right, there we go. Twine to the rescue. Get this thing tied around. Do a couple different times just to make sure that we've got it in there nice and tight, and that it's not going to come loose or work its way off in any way. Once this thing is tied up, it's going to go into the refrigerator overnight to let these flavors bloom. If you have a spot to hang them, obviously, that's the way to go. Just let it hang. Most people in their fridge don't have room for a 2.5 foot long summer sausage to hang. So we're going to put it in, let the flavors bloom overnight, and then we're going to smoke it the next day. All right, so we're going to get our smoker lit and ready to go. We're using an extremely tiny coal bed. We want to keep this thing just as cold as possible. Since I don't have a cold smoker, using a nice thick log, we want to produce a lot of smoke. We really don't want the log to ignite, just kind of smolder. We're going to keep this, like I said, as cold as we can. We're pumping right now around 125 degrees. We get this on, and we're going to let it come up very, very slowly to 150 degrees internal. That's going to take 4 to 5 hours, depending on how cool we keep it. Once it's finished, we're going to bring it in, submerge it in an ice bath for about 45 minutes to get that temperature all the way down. It takes that long on a piece of meat that large. Once we get it sliced up, we see it is absolutely gorgeous. That tang is amazing. The meat flavor is there. All the spices have bloomed. It's amazing. So we go ahead and we use that same spice blend, and we're going to work it with our Bison and our Venison. I found these Force of Nature brand at a local supermarket. They do include heart and liver, so you get a really nice umami flavor. We're going to mix that exactly like we did the last time. We're going to go ahead and get it into our stuffer. We're going to stuff it into those smaller casings. And with the smaller casings, we went ahead and experimented with different lengths of sausages. We did some 6-inch, 9-inch, foot-long, 18-inch to see how long it takes for each of those to smoke and to arrive at the right temperature, and to really just kind of see what's right for us for how much we eat, within a day or two of opening this. Once we got them all together, we taped and labeled each one with beef, bison, or venison, so we know what was going with what. We got them smoked and then hanging once they've been cooled down in our room. tried them out for what will be our holiday charcuteries that we do during lunch when the meals are being prepared and snacking on through the day. They were absolutely amazing. This is definitely worth trying at home. Hope you give it a shot. We're giving away a 5-piece cast iron lodge cookware set when we hit 1,000 subscribers. All you have to do is like a video and subscribe to the channel to be entered in the giveaway.